everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Great American Story. I'm Ron Hoon, and we are today going to be highlighting a president that I think, John, you could say was clearly one of the most consequential presidents in American history, and yet doesn't get talked about near as much as the others who were consequential.
No doubt. This is kind of cool because I didn't really know a whole lot about this guy behind me, James Polk.
Sure.
You're like the Fox 10 presidential historian. you like know something about every president. I love it.
Johnny,
it's just great.
I'll take that as the greatest compliment
Absolutely.
I've had all year.
Yeah. But let's dig in. He was a consequential president,
Sure.
no question.
Yeah.
But I think little is known because he was a one-term president.
Yeah.
He died shortly after leaving office.
Yeah.
But our country would not be as big as it is, maybe.
Yes, right?
Without the efforts of this man.
How about props to a man who said he was going to run for one 4-year term, none of this 8-year business?
Yeah.
And he kept it. He kept that promise.
He got stuff done.
Yeah.
You know, whether you necessarily agree with it, because I guess there could be controversy here with, the whole manifest destiny thing and that kind of stuff. But
right.
He got
I don't know
stuff
about
done.
you, but I'm glad we have a country that goes from sea to shining sea.
I agree with you, 100%. Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so unique in a lot of ways. First of all, he was the youngest president that we had had up to that time. 49 years old when he took office. And yet when he left office 4 years later, I think he realized he didn't maybe have a lot of the gregariousness that we expect out of our presidents.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. But one thing that he had going for him, I think he thought he could outwork anybody. But his level of hard work put him to the point where I don't think if he'd run for another 4 years, John, he could have survived it.
No question. Yeah. As I was doing research, that was one of the things that came across was that he had that workaholic personality.
Right.
And it was a somber White House. That was the kind of mood that was described. Very task-oriented. His wife was basically his chief of staff.
Yes, right. She protected him in a lot of different ways. In fact, we'll talk about it eventually here. When the war begins, the Mexican-American War begins, she determines which newspaper articles he'll see and not see.
Isn't that something? Because
there were plenty of people who were very much opposed to it in this country.
Yes.
And she kind of wanted to protect him from, say, the negative press that was going on. But we're jumping way too far ahead.
I mean, let's go back a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
This is so born in North Carolina. He moves to Tennessee. He's from Tennessee.
Kept those Carolina ties, by the way. We'll just mention because he did go to the university there in North Carolina to study.
Interestingly enough, he did not win Tennessee in the election, believe it or not. Go figure.
Yeah.
Can't win his home state.
Right.
Andrew Jackson was his mentor.
Yes.
He was actually called Young Hickory.
Yes, old Hickory, he was the mentor to young Hickory.
So a Jacksonian Democrat, served, I think, 7 terms in Congress.
14 years.
14 years. And served as Speaker of the House, which is...
Those last 4 years.
Yeah, yes. Which I'm not sure there's another president that ever served as Speaker previous.
Right.
I may have to check myself on that.
You're probably right.
But I think that's one of the things that makes him unique.
Sure.
Also served as governor of Tennessee as well.
And yet, that's another unique thing about it. With him, I think you could say, the old saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Yeah. It's the flip version of that for him. It's if at first you do succeed, which he did win the first time he ran for governor.
He did, yeah.
Then try again, and he lost.
Yeah.
But he never really gave up completely. I think at that point, so he gets 2 years in office. He runs again. Let's see, he was in 1839. He won it.
Yep.
1841, he lost. 1843, he lost. And I think there were plenty of people at that point who thought, well, that's about it for his political career. Little did they know, within about a year, he would be voted in as the next American president.
Yeah. I want to hit on something from his childhood that you and I talked about a little earlier this morning about this surgery he had to remove a bladder stone.
Yeah.
I will let our viewers and our listeners Google the details of this gruesome surgery, but we're talking in the 1840s. There's no anesthesia.
Yeah.
A surgeon had to remove a bladder stone through his prostate.
So he cut in through basically the kind of the perineum area.
Yes.
Right? And
while he's strapped to a board, awake,
right?
And
I mean, this was surgery in the early 1800s.
Yeah.
He was a teenager.
Yeah.
The surgery, I think they felt, was successful because it did. You know, he was in so much pain for such a long time. We now know that stones generally are created by dehydration.
Yeah.
But rather than say drink a lot more water, they went in. They did this operation. The thought was that it destroyed any sexual function that he would have had.
He was childless. They did not have children.
He and Sarah never had a child.
And there was thoughts, obviously, that he was infertile afterwards. He had to go on a 200-mile journey on horseback to see that doctor. So you've got that on top of that, and then there's also talk that he was given a sedative of brandy, and after that he was a I always miss
with the teetotaler.
Teetotaler.
Okay, yes,
afterwards,
right.
he never drank. There was no alcohol in the White House.
I got that one down because I am a teetotaler, John.
That's a tongue twister for me, man. But anyway,
okay,
I digress.
So that happens.
Yeah.
And it did impact the rest of his life,
no
doubt. He, the sexual function was gone. The ability to have kids apparently was gone. But nevertheless, he meets the love of his life. And I really think that once again, it's another great example. We are talking about Sarah Childress, who, by the way, the word was that the matchmaker in this situation was Andrew Jackson himself. He knew the Childress family. And he knew the Polk family.
Interesting.
Being by far the most dominant character in Tennessee.
Yeah.
But that Sarah told a young James that she had certain standards for the guy she was going to marry, and he was going to be successful. And oh, by the way, if you're not interested in running for office, I'm not interested in marrying you.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know how cagey she put it, but he got the message that's for sure. And she became his mentor through the rest of his life, which unfortunately was cut short. It's so odd that the youngest president to have served up to that point, he was 49 years old, that he would be dead within just a few months after he left office. Now, he contracted cholera, but his immune system was so weakened from what I understand were 16-hour days this guy worked. He was the ultimate definition of a workaholic, and it led him to an early grave.
And his inauguration was, the weather was miserable, from what I understand. So I'm sure that didn't help his health, and didn't help in an era where infection and disease was rampant. It's another miracle that he survived that surgery we were talking about earlier. But you're right. Sarah Childress basically devoted herself to his career and advised him on like his manifest destiny policy. I mean, it's pretty fascinating stuff.
That's right. And because of James K. Polk, manifest destiny meant that he wanted a country.
Yes.
And he won that election in 1844 because the people agreed with him. They felt as though the man that he was running against, who was Henry Clay, he wrote a letter in 1844 that was meant to sound statesmanlike, but it was all his components of his thinking about whether we really should annex Texas, and he wanted to make sure that would only happen if Mexico said it was okay.
Yeah.
And Polk had a completely different view. That Texas will be a part of the United States. It ultimately led to the war with Mexico.
He was the dark horse candidate, though, which I find that very interesting. Martin Van Buren was really the Democratic frontrunner. Oh yeah. James Polk, it took eight votes on the floor during the convention for him to get the nomination because it was a stalemate. It was a very close election. It was one of the closest popular vote contests in U.S. history. And part of the reason why is there was a spoiler candidate, James Birney of the Anti-Slavery Liberty Party. He actually pulled 2.3% of the vote in New York State. Had Clay won that state, he would have been president.
Right.
So
New York was the key to the whole thing.
He really did eke out that win. So I found that really fascinating.
Okay,
anyway.
So John and I were talking just a little bit about this, and it's interesting because you could make the argument that a disaster, I believe this was the biggest peacetime disaster to ever hit the United States Navy. There was a catastrophic explosion aboard the USS Princeton. And they had this huge new cannon that they were ready to show off. And on February 28th, 1844, who would think that something that went so horribly wrong on board this particular ship, the USS Princeton, would have such an impact on who would then become president in a few months' time. So it's an election year. It's 1844. And they made the decision, and I think obviously time proved that it was the faulty decision. They had this massive 12-inch wrought iron cannon known as the Peacemaker. And one of the leaders on board, they had fired it once. It worked great. There was a second firing that day. And then they decided to go ahead and launch one more cannon launch, frankly, to impress George Washington because it was right in front of Mount Vernon.
Wow.
George Washington was long since gone.
Sure.
But the Washington family was there. It was Mount Vernon. It was just so symbolic, I think. And so they launched this cannon a third time. And when they did, a massive explosion hit on the USS Princeton. Lying dead after the explosion, and this is sort of the AI version of what happened, was the Secretary of State, a man named Abel Upshur. His death changed everything when it came to the United States and Mexico and Texas, and we'll talk about that after the break.
Okay. Let's go to our trivia question.
Let's.
Okay, James K. Polk's presidency was a period of rapid modernization. He was the very first U.S. president to have which of the following events occur during his term? His inauguration was reported live via the electric telegraph. He was the first sitting president to be photographed, or he was the first president to have a telephone installed in the White House.
Ooh.
I hope to stump you on this one, but I'm not sure. You know a lot about this guy. So
yeah, okay. Well, we'll be right back with the answer. Okay, everybody, welcome back to more of the Great American Story. And we are going to be talking about this poll question because I'll tell you one thing. This gentleman right here, Johnny Noetzel, man, he digs and he digs. And we both do our homework for you every episode to make sure we know, as we got facts and figures and stories running out of our head. And yet, Johnny, you've come up with a really good poll question or question trivia of the segment. What do you got?
Sure. Our trivia question. Our James K. Polk's presidency was a period of rapid modernization. He was the very first U.S. president to have which of the following events occurred during his term? His inauguration was reported via the electric telegraph. He was the first sitting president to be photographed, or he was the first president to have a telephone installed in the White House.
So I'm going to go the photograph route. Now, okay. I realize that we're in 1844, 1845. We all know that by the time the Civil War came around, photography was, in reality, kind of commonplace in the country.
Yeah.
But it was very rare at that point. So I'll go B. He was the first sitting president to be photographed.
Well, close, and it's you're wrong, but
okay. Break it to me gently.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Close,
you know my goal every week is to stump you on this, because if I can stump a historian like Ron Hoon, then I've accomplished something. It's interesting because actually a lot of people assume that it was because it's the earliest existing of a sitting president.
Yes.
John Quincy Adams was actually in 1843, but he wasn't president at the time.
Okay.
William Henry Harrison had his picture taken in 1841, but it's lost to history. So his is the first photograph.
Yeah.
William Henry Harrison is the first photograph.
Right, but it's gone.
It's gone.
Literally
But
lost to history.
Technically, Polk is not the first then.
Okay.
The first sitting president.
And it really was not a very flattering photograph anyway, so maybe he shouldn't have sat down for it.
It wasn't. So actually, the answer is A, the electric telegraph. Samuel Morse himself was present at the inauguration and tapped out what was going on to the rest of the country.
Wow.
So yeah, kind of a cool thing. Maybe there's a little bit of, not confusion, but a little, nuance there that makes your answer close. But this is a photo, but it's actually, this is actually a picture of a photograph. Of
okay.
Polk. So yeah, but
all right.
So
you know what? I was actually visualizing a different one. I'm glad you're calling that up.
Yeah.
There it is over your shoulder. But there's another one that was taken at about the time he left office, and I mean, he looked like death warmed over.
Oh,
this is so interesting that here's a man who was such a micro manager that. He was the youngest man to ever serve as president when he went into office.
Oh, wow.
And by the time he came out of office, he looked like he had aged. And we see it every time, presidents age.
They do.
But in this case, he looked like he aged 30 years in 4 years.
That probably didn't help him afterward. I mean, he died 103 days after he left office.
Well, the talk was that he worked 12 to 14-hour days. And he wasn't much of a socializer. I really think that if Sarah, the first lady, had not enjoyed that aspect, there would have been almost no socializing between the White House and members of Congress. She was the one that put on all of the events, all of the parties, invited people, and sometimes he'd make an appearance, but sometimes he wouldn't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting guy for sure.
Hey, before the break, we were talking about the Princeton and about this explosion and the chain of events that landed Polk in the White House.
Okay, let's wrap up that story right now because here you had the USS Princeton, and as we said, it was a personal tragedy, obviously, for the families of the men who were killed in the explosion. It had to be so shocking. A ship like that was thought to be, the class of the Navy.
Yeah.
And the best that could be produced. And then this explosion with the cannon. And the next thing you know, the Secretary of State of the United States, Abel Upshur, is lying dead on the deck of the Princeton. So the thing about it is, John, he was actively negotiating, I think was pretty far down the road, of a treaty with Mexico that would have resolved the conflict over Texas. Texas then, at that time, was just such a huge issue. It was maybe the biggest issue in the country.
Right.
And, the United States and the people of Texas wanted that boundary to be the Rio Grande.
Right.
Not the Nueces. But Mexico only considered the Nueces.
Interesting.
The boundary there. Therefore, there was going to be conflict. Now, James K. Polk came into office. Let me back up for just a minute. John Tyler, once he knew his Secretary of State was dead, selected a controversial choice, and I'm really not sure why. These are some of the many questions we wish we could have had answered. Why did he go with John C. Calhoun?
A Southern,
a Southern firebrand, controversial, who also basically had to restart the negotiations, and they went nowhere. And in the end, there was no deal with Mexico, and so we were headed to war. And I really feel like the whole outcome of the presidency could have gone the other way if there had been a treaty and that issue was off the table, because Polk ran against Henry Clay.
Yeah.
And Henry Clay came out with a letter that he sent out kind of, for the public's consumption, that considered the great negotiator, that he would go along with Mexico.
Right.
depending on what they wanted, Texas could come in, but it was more up to them.
Right.
Here comes James K. Polk in the election who says, no, Texas is going to be part of the United States.
A champion of manifest
destiny. One way or the other.
Yep.
And correct, manifest destiny. So interesting, John. Manifest destiny, in a way, was a slogan. This is what our country is. This is our destiny, is to go from sea to shining sea. But he turned it from a slogan into reality.
Oh, no question.
And because we see a lot of campaign slogans that kind of come and go.
Yeah.
But not in this case.
No, he got things done. I mean, whether or not you agree with his platform or not, I mean, he got it done. I mean, we were talking about the Louisiana Purchase versus the expansion under James Polk.
Right.
How does that compare? I mean, I think Louisiana Purchase was a little bigger, maybe?
All right, so that's a really great question, and there are actually two answers.
Okay.
Yes, the Louisiana Purchase was a larger, that was 530 million acres, and Thomas Jefferson, every school child knows in this country, deserves the credit for the 530 million acres that came into the United States.
Right.
But James K. Polk really doesn't get much credit at all. The number was a little bit less. Let me put on my specs to make sure I'm reading it correctly, Johnny. 336 million acres at the end of the Mexican-American War. 336 million. But the thing is, he kind of felt like that war was necessary. And let's face it, not only did we win that war in the United States, our troops marched right into Mexico City.
They did.
They were not in a very good negotiating position.
Right.
Let's say that.
Right.
And so he took advantage of that. And so California, if you like California being in the United States.
If you like Arizona being in the United States.
If you like New Mexico, Colorado, parts of Utah, et cetera, that's all as a result of his presidency. Yeah. But then he negotiates with the British to bring in the Oregon Territory. And that is another 285 million acres. So when you add it up, there's never been another president in our history who brought more territory into the United States, one through conflict, the other through negotiation. And I grew up in the state of Washington. I went to the University of Washington. I could have well been in Canada. I got a lot of friends from Oregon or Idaho.
Yes.
That all just depended on how those negotiations went.
Fascinating.
And so the grand total, 621 million acres he brought into the United States in one single 4-year presidency.
Wow.
How about that?
That's an accomplishment,
yeah,
I would say.
Yes.
That he got it done. Yeah. A couple of interesting things about him that I found fascinating. The Jacksonian Democrat, we talked about his connection to Andrew Jackson, but he believed in limited government, which really is not the Democratic platform of today.
Right.
But you have to kind of look at the time frame and look at what the platform stood for. He believed in limited federal government, that they should stay out of the economy, anti-bank. He wanted no national bank. Favored free trade, so was not in was against tariffs. Yeah. And again, believed in it was pro-expansion. And let me put my timer back on here, my friend.
John's got a little timer, just so you know. This is how we make sure we keep it right to the minute. Yeah.
So, and then interestingly enough, he maybe kind of the dark side of James Polk was his stance on slavery. He did not view it as a moral dilemma. It was a business institution, in his opinion, and he actually purchased slaves during his presidency, but did it in kind of in the background where nobody really knew about it, kept it out of the public eye. So, I mean,
that's
character flaw,
that's
right?
A dark side.
It is a dark side.
Right.
He didn't view abolitionists the way Andrew Jackson did, who basically thought they were monsters. He just saw them as agitators and saw this as a huge business thing. It was not the moral side of this did not really factor in. So, so boy, we've had interesting presidents, interesting characters lead this country, and they're all flawed, right?
Every one of them flawed.
100%. So
maybe for Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, right.
Talk about one beloved president of ours, that's for sure.
Indeed.
And I think going back, you know, the argument was made that up until that point there had never been a president, and possibly since, who kept every single campaign promise. And he did. And maybe most importantly, he said, I'm going to go there for 4 years.
One term.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And he became a one-term president.
And a lot of people these days think that that's a good thing, that we should have term limits. And
right.
But a very interesting president, and really he did, as we've titled this episode, he did shape a continent.
Sure.
Really did. So,
really a very significant first lady, Sarah.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be a future episode.
Indeed.
She really shaped his presidency as well.
You bet. Yeah.
Okay, that's today's Great American Story. Thanks for watching. Got another episode coming soon.